thanks for everyone for joining today. I think it's going to be a good time just walking through what we feel were some of the key takeaways from CommunityLIVE. And obviously we had to spend the time again virtually with all of you. I know some folks attended our different events, our touch bases throughout the virtual week. But we also know a number of our customers weren't able to attend. So I'm excited to be able for Greg and I to walk through, we feel really some of our key takeaways for the conference. And really the first one that I walked away with was Hyland Experience. The whole Hyland Experience platform is being accelerated by acquisition. A lot of you have heard us talk about Hyland Experience over the last probably 3 years, right? And it's been, you know, if you were at CommunityLIVE a couple of years ago in Cleveland, I think we had people walking around in Mars suits and talking about this great journey that we're going on. And if you look at what we have right here on the screen from a Hyland Cloud Vision standpoint, you can really see three distinct areas. You have your existing content platforms, your line of business applications, but where I want to focus right now is that middle, where the Hyland Experience platform is really thinking about building an experience for you as an end user and be able to build persona-based applications, whether that's for a particular solution and have different views and different feels based off of their role within the process, or for you as an on-base administrator to build purpose-built applications throughout your organization. So from a Hyland Experience standpoint, it's really thinking about how we can extend those cloud-based, low-code development tools. And all of those different great components of OnBase that you've gotten to know over the years are being transitioned from being modules to individual services. So if you think I'm trying to go build an application where I need a front-end capture piece, I need to be able to view content, I need to be able to process transactions, I'm able to pull those individual services together then to create that solution and then present it out to the users, whether that's on the mobile, web, or still on desktops, but also still have those integrations with those core line of business applications, as well as those communication and collaboration tools. And even though that is that future direction, right, and where we're heading from a cloud standpoint, one of the key takeaways that I also got from the show was that OnBase isn't going anywhere, right? Hyland is invested in OnBase, Perceptive Content. I'll touch on Alfresco and Nuxio in a second. But as you see here, OnBase is still the underpinnings of this whole Hyland Experience platform. So it's not that you have to, as a organization, start reinvesting in a new platform. It's really about how OnBase is going to extend and modernize to this new cloud-first experience. And part of that was Hyland's acquisition of Alfresco and Nuxio. Their acquisition of these two cloud-first SaaS organizations has not just fueled Hyland with a whole new level of technology, but a huge amount of experience as it relates to how to execute on that strategy. And really, to me, that's been the biggest thing I've seen, Greg, is these new individuals coming into play from Hyland that bring a different outlook on how to approach this than some of the legacy Hyland folks had in place. So I'm really excited about this. If we go on to the next slide, Greg, if you want to just talk about some of these underpinnings that, especially from the Alfresco standpoint, that it's bringing to our customers that they never had before.
Yeah, and at CommunityLIVE, you know, we saw a lot of this, but I mean, just seeing it as it's already applying to the Hyland platform, we're seeing just a new platform as a service where we're taking the existing environments and making them broadly accessible and allowing you to build applications in a cloud-first, cloud-ready environment. This allows you to do things like instantly provision systems and scale them as needed based on the workload that you're trying to actually model. Open technology and standards so that we can be familiar with the tools and integrate with some systems that are using similar technology. There's no way to mention that without talking about something like AWS, the newer platform, and for the Hyland Experience, and even Alfresco and Nuxio are using components that broadly leverage things in AWS. We're using new technologies like NoSQL and REST API services, which I'll get into a little bit more later. It's kind of exciting, and it's definitely the new platform fixes a lot of, I think, some of the holes and challenges that we've seen over the years. integrating with other systems.
Yeah, integrating, upgrading, maintaining, speed to delivery. But to that point of the long-standing partnership, the Alfresco team, their whole organization was built around this AWS partnership. They meet with AWS on a weekly basis, and just having, again, from the relationship side of it, bringing that to the table and already having that in place has really been one of those things that's fueled this acceleration, and we're starting to see the Hyland Experience Platform come to life faster than what we thought. Yeah.
And so, just taking what Eric just said and kind of building on it, at the bottom here, we talk about some of the foundational AWS services, things that are, your storage and your compute, and some of the key things that any AWS implementation are going to have. Hyland is building and extending their functionality around that for OnBase and the other platforms to satisfy those core business requirements, right? I need to be able to provision things and to use identity and to to send notifications in and out of the system, to ingest content, maybe export it to other places. And ultimately, this can be done through familiar clients that we use today and new clients like the Hyland Experience that are still under development, and we're looking to see what that ultimately will show. Kind of this partnership across the whole spectrum of their services. It's exciting. We have questions. Hyland at times has questions, but I think overall it's the perfect direction to go and bring what you are comfortable with in OnBase into a more cloud-ready, cloud-first, future-proof state.
Yeah, and I think that really leads to the second takeaway is, we've been talking about, and a number of our customers have moved to the Hyland Cloud over the last several years, right? Legacy customers that were on-premise and decided, it's time from an organizational standpoint to bring OnBase along with a lot of their other cloud strategy. And we have, probably a dozen or so customers right now that are planning their Hyland Cloud migration. And it's really the first step of getting towards the Hyland Experience Platform, because once you're in the cloud, it's already making those key changes to your system that allows that integration with the future platform. So one of the things that we want to touch on are just some of the things that as an organization, you can start doing to prepare for your migration to the cloud. And there's some simple things, but it's a lot of things that fall by the wayside when you've been using a system for a long time that you don't think about doing, right? Simple things are like updating your documentation, whether that's update infrastructure diagrams, where you're integrating with different third-party systems, where your custom development points are within your solution, the size of your overall solution, where is all the content stored, how much content do you have, how much do you have in backup, how much do you have from a database in your disk groups. And
this is good hygiene in general, but if you're looking to change how your solution is going to be deployed, this has to get done sooner rather than later, just so you understand the scope of it.
Yeah. And then moving on is also, and this makes sense, right? But it's a tough thing to do. And it's really about preparing and thinking ahead. Is all of you guys are continuously making updates to your OnBase system. And it's thinking through, when do I want to do this cloud migration in tandem with all the other projects I have going on in OnBase? One of the key things is we really see the most success in our migrations where they put that freeze in place that says, okay, no more solution enhancements, no more new implementations, no new rollouts, and allows us to then take that on-premise database and use that for the pre-prod database within the Hyland Cloud. Having that freeze really helps ensure that smooth transition to the cloud. And then, Greg, if you want to talk about custom development,
I would love to.
Yeah, I don't write code, so
I know on this call a lot of you have VB scripts. I've seen them. VB scripts are old, and they're very, very old, and they've been old for a long time. Microsoft disabled them from being able to run out of the box in an update in something like, I think it's 2017. These are legacy code. They're probably very important in your environment, and if you're going to continue using them, they should be upgraded to something more modern like Unity scripts. Along the same lines, custom electronic forms, eForms, are something that usually fill the gap. That gap may be something that OnBase can do natively today in Unity forms. It would be absolutely critical to look to see and make sure that that works in a Unity form. The nice part about that is it shifts the development cost away from your burden when you upgrade to make sure that your things still work to Hyland's burden, because you've built it on their platform, and if you upgrade and it breaks, now Hyland's like, oh yeah, let me get that fixed for you. This is just, a good best practice to do in general, but especially if you're looking to take it to the cloud, because there's some things you may be doing on an e-form that are not compatible with this environment living in a completely different data center. Another couple things, ODBC or ADO.NET or any of the other database connections, that doesn't exist over the internet, or at least it really shouldn't. It's something that if you're reaching out to the system right next to OnBase in order to pull back some data, that paradigm is not going to work if your system lives somewhere else. So you got to look at things like your external autofills, external, keyword data sets, those e-forms and Unity forms we talked about, WorkView external classes, or any sort of integrations you may have written. You'll want to maybe have some flat files that are dumped out that you can ingest the data on later, or what we commonly see are web services. We're reaching out to a web service, we're making it accessible, and then the Hyland GCS environment can reach out, touch that web service, and get the data it needs. The Hyland Data Broker service, there's a couple different ways to solve this problem, but the key thing is, you can't reach out and touch that database. These are going to need to get updated, regardless of where you move your OnBase solution to, but especially if you move it to the Hyland GCS.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those key ones that, compared to some of the other ones we touched on, that can take a lot of time.
Yeah.
And this is one of those ones that I encourage everyone who's thinking about moving to the cloud of looking now, right? And creating your own game plan of, okay, where are we going to go and update these ODBC connections, write some of these web services and Unity scripts in order to do some of that integration work, so that when we don't get to the cloud migration, we're like, oh my gosh, well, I've got to add, a couple hundred hours of internal time here to go do this work, delay the upgrade, delay the migration, etc. So this is stuff you can do in your on-premise environment, where it can keep working in your on-premise environment and then be ready to work when you go to the cloud.
And Eric, our professional services team is doing a lot of this work today.
Yeah.
And we have a pretty full, let us know if you need help, because we're doing a lot of rewriting and getting creative on how to make data available differently based on people's changing environments. Another, just a quick, housekeeping item, things like a smaller database is easier to transfer and has less to go wrong with it. So shrinking your transaction logs, which you should be doing anyway, your general database maintenance, get rid of stuff that isn't of value anymore. If you have document retention, which I would hope you would, run that and make sure that you're getting rid of, documents and data in accordance with retention policies, because you don't want to just hold on to stuff forever, because regulations and the law. So all those things are important to do. Again, this is good hygiene, but it makes transitions to Hyland's cloud way, way, way easier. And the last thing I want to do is, and this is something that's near and dear to me, is, everybody I talk to is like, oh yeah, we usually integrate with Active Directory. Active Directory is, the premier small business to enterprise identity service. It's something that you are using to provide your source of users and groups and everything. Active Directory, there's no easy way to make that available to some system on the internet. So Hyland provides the ability to do this today with the Hyland IDP server. This allows you to use a more modern technology. It's configured using JSON, and it runs as a web server and allows you to integrate with any number of identity servers. And examples would be like Azure AD, Okta, Duo. But and those are commonly used with something like SAML in an OpenID Connect to make that integration point. But the thing is, this is something that you don't have to wait until a migration to do. You can modernize your identity. You can implement things like multi-factor authentication into OnBase by utilizing these technologies today. And then when you go to migrate to the cloud, it's really just copying some of your configuration and then moving forward. So some important stuff that we're seeing, as we're thinking through this and we're talking with customers, we're seeing a lot of discussion around this, and customers are trying to wrap their head around what it might entail. I think these are some good points.
It's key to the future. Almost every single new element that Hyland is rolling out is run through Hyland IDP. And any of the newer features, functionality that Hyland's rolling out, integrations, tools that exist in the Hyland portfolio outside of OnBase are all through IDP.
Yeah.
So it's just the right step to be making. So takeaway number 3, ON-Base Foundation EP5 is released and ready to go. And ON-Base has come a long way in 10 years since I had this 2011 ON-Base version 11.0 cup here that I'm doing my water out of. So
the water is more recent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I figured I'd bring out a decade-old legacy cup there for honor of our session today. So Foundation EP5 is a long-term release of ON-Base, which is key from a security standpoint. So any type of bug enhancements, security enhancements, patches, fixes, etc., will all be rolled back to this long-term release. So very different from like EP4, which was just a standard enhancement pack. This is a true LTR. This is the version we'd recommend everyone moving out to. Over 2,400 updates with over 1,300 enhancements to the product. I'll touch through some of the module enhancements. We have a few customers using this, which is why I wanted to point it out, is there's a new version of the AP invoice approval app, which for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's a persona-based application, very similar to some of the things we're starting to see in the Hyland experience platform for reviewing, approving invoices. What's new in EP5 is the ability to do GL coding. So right from that line, I'm be able to do the GL code. Go ahead and move forward, you're great, man. ON-Base Mobile, which the new version of ON-Base Mobile came out last in EP4. They're trying to make it in parity with the legacy ON-Base Mobile. So annotations came out, the ability to share documents outside of ON-Base. So like you have in a lot of your other mobile apps, that little button that you click for sharing and it floats up with all the different sharing tools. Deep linking. And what deep linking is, for those that you aren't familiar, is the ability then to send a notification, for example, through workflow to a user that you want them to open up that link directly into the ON-Base Mobile versus web client or something like that. So that now exists within ON-Base Mobile. And then they've just made some enhancements to better work with tablet screen real estate. Some minor changes from a folders and file cabinets configuration, but this is really big for folks that do use folders and you're an ON-Base admin, is that you have the ability, before, when you were in a folder to assign user groups to the child, you had to click on every single child to assign user groups individually. Now you can take it from the parent level with a single click and drive that down to the individual child folders.
And this was a suggestion on the Hyland community. So
yeah.
If you have ideas on how to make things better for yourselves, get them out there. Let us know about it. We will upvote them and get them hopefully in the next version of the software.
Workflow, a lot of these, again, we're tied more from an admin perspective, just faster loading with an ON-Base Studio. The ability to add queues that are routing WorkView objects to a personal page. So for those of you that leverage personal pages and WorkView, the ability to now launch a WorkView object from that widget on the personal page. And then finally, with document composition, Greg will touch on the REST APIs next, but one of the really key enhancements, and we see this of value, especially for a lot of our document composition customers, is the ability to now have required placeholders. So not just a placeholder on a document, but that it must be populated with content in order for that composed document to be saved and brought into the system.
So I want to go through a little bit about just the platform overall. Eric covered a lot of some of the module-specific things that we saw at CommunityLIVE, but for the platform itself that are available to all modules, something like the Hyland Key Vault. This is new. The idea here, for those that are not really into encryption, the key here is to have your data encryption key, which encrypts your key encryption keys.
And a lot of keys.
It's a lot of keys. It actually is exhausting. But this is very important from a regulatory standpoint, and just from depending on your industry, this may be a requirement. The idea here is your keys are important. Keep your keys somewhere safe. You shouldn't store them in a configuration file. They shouldn't be stored in an open database. They should be stored somewhere encrypted with an important key. And then the idea is that if you are a victim of a data breach, ransomware, or whatever, you can rotate your master key and then have it invalidate all the other keys and then re-key them with the new key. The idea here being, to keep your data safe and keep your secrets secret.
And real quick, and I'll say this now for this and some of these other, I'll say more security enhancement related platform updates. I know for a lot of you, this is new stuff, right? And it's new things you haven't had to think about in the past. Well, one of the great things that Greg brings to the table is that he is now our Chief Information Security Officer, as well as our Chief Technology Officer. Greg's able to sit down with you as a customer and talk through what these actually mean to you as an on-base administrator or as an organization running on-base. So don't feel like you're alone out here trying to navigate the security world of on-base. Beyond Greg, we have some other members of our team that are well schooled within security. So we're happy to get engaged with you and talk about this stuff beyond some bullets here on the screen. So again, it's a lot up there. Don't feel overwhelmed. We've got the right people in place to help you out.
When your security team comes to you and says, can on-base do to 800-57, to Eric's point, don't freak out, let me know. I'd be happy to talk to them and what options are available for compliance with some of these newer regulations. Temporary file service is it's kind of the same idea. The idea is to keep your keys, in this case, AWS S3 keys. Those are, again, they're key to your S3 buckets. We want to make sure they're stored somewhere very secure. And this is this temporary file service. It's part of, I believe, the on-base API server, but it allows you to store those in a way that can't be reverse engineered and have your secrets stuff yourself. It's an important security update that is only available in EP5 from now on. On-base disk groups, you can store in S3 if you haven't heard whether that's Amazon S3 or some of the other implementations of it. But if you do that, there was no way up until now to do disk group analysis. And because S3 disk groups are only one copy, unlike multiple copies that you see in traditional, network file shares, because there's just one copy, it's hard to tell if a file is missing. What this will do is it'll basically look for a file with a name and a size and validate that it still exists. If it was deleted outside of on-base, the report will tell you about that. So that's a nice thing. Not to belabor the point, but this is a little bit overdue. The Unity API can finally use the Hyland IDP server. So before this, if you were writing and you're like, hey, we're using a modern authentication schema, that's awesome, except anything that you did in the Unity API had to be done using another type of login. This brings feature parity for that, which is great. And then finally, change control. And Eric, do you remember? I don't think there's initial licensing for change control. I think this is just something you can use. The ability to define sets of environmental variables, the idea being like, hey, when I create a new system, I want the app server and the web server and the name of these files, and I want all these different parameters. When I create a new system, I want them to use these values, not these values. This saves a lot of time when you're backing up and restoring test systems, because it'll automatically apply those changes, and then you don't have to manually go in and do 40 steps because you wanted to refresh your test system. So those are some of the biggest platform updates, and I want to continue on, just talk a little bit more about what was mentioned earlier. REST APIs, for those that are not programmers or don't care about this, just hear me out. REST APIs are definitely, you're going to see more of them. You're using them every day on mobile apps. You're using them every day on your software as a service. These are public application programming interfaces that are used to basically do on-base things outside of on-base. They're introduced in EP2. They're developed using open standards. You're going to see things on that bottom line, to Eric's point, the Hyland IDP, the on-base API server, and the temp file server. You're going to see a lot more of these because this is the future of the platform. These REST APIs allow you to do, we've added some more. There's actually a growing body of what you can do with them, but they can now take advantage of things like queries per hour. They can now do keyword masking and some of the controls that you have in the on-base application. I mean, they're growing and they're becoming more critical. Modules are starting to rely on the REST APIs as written, because Hyland just wants to write it one time and then have all their software run through the same code path. This is something that's available programmatically today, and we have even more features in EP5. One of the neat things, Eric and I were just talking about this earlier, is the administrative REST API. What that means is basically, for those that use on-base configuration, it looks like it was written in the 1990s, and that's because mostly it was. And so the the ability to programmatically make changes to on-base configuration is actually really cool. This allows you to, for example, make a web portal and create a new document type, or create keywords and assign them to that document type. These are some of the early administrative REST API features that are available today. There's going to be more added in every release. I don't have a roadmap on that, but I'm excited to see what we would be able to do with more control and being able to change things from a different interface.
Real quick, the other, we touched on briefly there's also obviously the document composition, REST APIs.
Oh.
But then the other thing we didn't mention and we didn't put in here, but it just popped in my head now, is there also is now a whole layer of WorkView REST APIs available in EP5. So for many of you, I know we probably have the highest concentration of WorkView users across the entire Hyland ecosystem. So for a lot of you guys, it's a great next step in that evolution to be able to have access to the WorkView REST APIs that will continue to grow as well. So along the EP5 route, so Greg's talked about, we talked about module enhancements, we talked about platform updates, some of the new updates with the REST APIs. I'm going to just take a few seconds and talk about some of the new modules or updates to modules. So on-base integration for Salesforce 2.0. The key things you've been able to do is be able to import content, access content, but you could also do your configuration of the solution directly from within inside of Salesforce, which is a little bit unique compared to some of the other integration components within the on-base platform. So if we take a look at it here, really what you're doing and what we're showing here for those of you that are Salesforce users, and we're a Salesforce organization. I know we've got a significant amount of customers in our ecosystem that are Salesforce customers. I think the last I saw, Greg, is they have 150,000 customers.
It's
something crazy where like their customer base is, if you take their next three competitors combined, they have more customers. So whether you're using this for CRM like you have here where it's an account object, it could be where you've built your own custom solutions inside of Salesforce, like I know we have some of our customers that have done that. Although the example right here is on an account object, you have the ability to embed the document viewer here, the on-base integration, into any Salesforce Lightning page. So whether you have, again, a custom solution that is designed specifically for your organization, you can embed that here. Really what this is exposing a custom query. Then that custom query is then searching based off of the criteria that your page is on, and then resulting back with that defined list. And then if you go ahead and move forward, Greg, then I have an integrated document viewer, so I can open up those documents, access those documents, view keywords, etc. Go ahead and move on. Now, new within Salesforce 2.0, and really this is the next step, right? The next evolution is, well, it's great if I can present documents, but we know that OnBase has gone well beyond just being a document management system, and it's really a process automation platform. And if I look at, well, how can I expose workflow? So now within Salesforce 2.0 that came out in EP5, you have the ability to execute ad hoc tasks. The only limitation here is they cannot involve user interaction yet at this point. But there's a lot of value that you guys, especially from like an approval standpoint that we have here as an example, simple routing, but again, allows you to expose that on-base workflow directly within inside of Salesforce. And then I think this is a really exciting one too, because I know a lot of Salesforce users live within mobile. They don't really even use the web client. They're on their mobile device, they're on the road, they're meeting with clients. So you now have the ability, again, with any type of Salesforce object to add both the on-base documents as well as the on-base workflow to your mobile layout screen. You still have the ability to view that content, pinch, zoom, view keywords, and then also be able to execute those ad hoc tasks.
I mean, my primary is probably a browser-based Salesforce, but I'm always impressed when I go into the Salesforce mobile app, how much you can do in there. I think just adding on-base to that's huge.
Especially for folks that are in like a sales role, be able to view their on-base content directly from this. And a big value for those of you that are Salesforce customers, one is this is a supported integration that's in the App Store. that you don't have to worry about maintaining a custom integration that you may have done with Salesforce already. The other big value to it is that as this continues to add more features to it, it'll be exposed to you as a Salesforce integration customer again, versus having to update and maintain your own custom solution. On the roadmap, there's plenty of things up here. I think the two I'll highlight the most are one in the middle, which is document migration utility. For those of you that use Salesforce today, one of the biggest challenges is the cost of storage within inside of Salesforce for content. Yes, it's easy just to attach a file to a record within inside of Salesforce, but that gets out of hand. There's no structure, there's no control in place. So Hyland's rolling out a document migration utility to take content that you've already stored in Salesforce and migrate that into OnBase and then expose it back through the integration.
This could also be very important from a regulatory standpoint. If, for example, you're storing documents of say they contain PHI, you want to migrate them back into OnBase in a way that you know you have certain security controls in place versus just having them out there open on your Salesforce cloud.
And then the next one I'll say right under that is that within Salesforce communities, so like for example, our support portal within Kiriworks is managed through Salesforce. So for those of you that use our support panel to open up tickets, initiate chat, etc., that's all run through Salesforce Community. One of the things that Hyland's exploring is how to present OnBase content directly out through that community page and allow that to be accessed by external users. So a great way for us to be able to share content out to customers, for organizations that use communities both internally and externally to share content. So really kind of think of it, for those of you that don't have exposure to it, think of it more of like a portal and the ability to extend OnBase content through that Salesforce portal. Next is takeaway number 6. And really this is one that we've been getting a lot of questions about for probably the last 3 to 4 years is, hey guys, why is DocuSign really the only option for integration for digital signatures? We use Adobe Sign. That was the consistent vendor we kept hearing was Adobe Sign. So in EP6, we're really excited to announce that OnBase has released the OnBase integration for Adobe Sign. It's very similar to the DocuSign integration for the ability to upload content directly into Adobe Sign for execution, for OnBase to be able to go out and check on the status of it. Has it been signed? Has it been opened? Etc. And then be able to pull down that signed, secured Adobe Sign document back into OnBase and then route it through the process appropriately. So here you can see I'm in an OnBase workflow. I have a document that I want to send out through Adobe Sign. So much like DocuSign, it is fully integrated with OnBase workflow. So I can use an ad hoc task there to send this out to Adobe Sign for signature. I can go ahead and say, okay, where is this going? Who's it's going to? Go ahead and click next. And then I can drag and drop and place my signature fields directly onto that document. And then once it's signed, it'll automatically enter back into workflow, and then based off of it being signed, automatically route it to the next step in the process. So it automatically routed it to that completed queue based off of it having that signature in place by the user. So again, very straightforward, very similar to DocuSign. But the key thing here is it just opens the door for you as an OnBase user, if you use Adobe Sign, to be able to extend this signing functionality out to your customers, internal customers. Now, takeaway number 7. This has probably been one of the biggest areas that we as an organization, from a Kiriworks standpoint, have invested in over the last, I'll say, 9 months. When Hyland acquired Another Monday, which was a robotic process automation platform, we really got excited because Hyland was going down the route originally. They talked about a partnership with Blue Prism, but now by them having their own RPA solution, it really opens the door for us to be able to add RPA, one, for all of our current customers like you, and look at workflow processes that you already have today and how to add further automation, but also allow you guys to have a single vendor to go to for all of your process automation. So Greg, if you can move forward. For those that aren't familiar with RPA, really it's a low code, usually no code software application that uses robots to automate manual tasks. So this could be anything from going out to a website, logging into that website, looking up a piece of information, grabbing that piece of information and bringing it into a workflow solution, updating a keyword, etc. The way I like to think about it is, especially if you go back and look at, almost everyone on this call has on-base workflow, right? Almost every single one of our customers has workflow. It's to take a look at those processes that you have today and think about, well, where did on-base end, right? Where did I have to stop my automation inside of on-base, where I still had to have a knowledge worker go somewhere else, find information, look up that information, bring it back into on-base in order to further the process. To me, those are one of those key areas to help you think about, well, where could I put RPA in places where I have those manual tasks in place. The other big benefit, in my opinion, from an RPA standpoint, is that the use cases are endless and they're across every potential industry. So if you're trying to think about, well, where could I really target RPA in my organization? So one of the folks from Another Monday, I was talking with him and he shared some of these 3 key points. Is, they typically look at, well, where are most people working on computers, right? If I go into an organization, I start walking through, it's like, well, it's not going to be people in my file room, it's not going to be people here, but for people that are on their machine all day long, then target them, then think through, what are the top 3 processes that you work on a daily basis? Then narrow it down into one of those top 3 and then think, okay, within that top 3, what are your biggest issues? What are the things today that drive you crazy? And in almost every case, it's these repetitive manual tasks that cause them to have to leave an application that they're already in to go find something else. So for you, those of you that are in a admin position on the on-base side, you're trying to think, well, how can I help surface some of these RPA opportunities? One is look at the processes that you have today. And then the next one is use these 3 questions to kind of navigate through the organization to surface some opportunities. One of the things that I was really excited about at the conference, and I know Brent Kubik, one of our senior account executives, shared this case study with a number of us, was the VP of IT from Funeral Directors Life shared their case study and their use case of RPA, Hyland RPA, and it was impactful, empowering to see how someone could take a new technology and make a big difference in their organization. So their use case was they had about 8 people in their new business team. So not a huge department, right? They're not a big organization either, right? I think they have 350 employees. So you don't have to be some massive enterprise to implement RPA. And they were processing about 2,000 contracts per week. And Funeral Directors Life, they offer insurance to funeral homes to care for all the expenses related to a funeral home. Unfortunately, with COVID, they had a huge increase in sales over the last year, and we're having a really hard time of keeping up with all of this new influx of new contracts. Not only were the users having a hard time, but their core admin system was also being weighed down with users being in it constantly, and they were potentially having to look at how to solve this drain on their own internal IT systems. And then from a human standpoint, their new business team was having to stay late every single day in order to get this work done. They weren't working their normal shifts, you were getting burnout, so they really looked at, well, what can we do to try to solve this problem? So the individual from Funeral Directors learned about Hyland RPA and this is all from this year, learned about it towards the end of March, and he worked with their account executive to get a 30-day trial of Hyland RPA. So within their team, they're also a premium subscription customer. So they got their 30-day trial, went through some of the pre-recorded sessions within premium subscription, learned on their own how to develop some RPA bots. And by the end of 2 weeks, or maybe 3 weeks there, they were able to present to their solution to their senior leadership team to show them the impact they felt they could have on this new business process by automating a lot of these manual steps that these individuals were having to do to process their contracts. So they moved forward. They were able to purchase 5 bots because they had 5 very distinct use cases doing different things. They then took that next month, the month of April, to build it out. And by the end of April, so in just really 3 weeks there, they were able to get all 5 bots up live, and they were settling 95% of their daily contracts after a month of getting it set up. They then went back and looked, 3 weeks later, they were closing out almost all contracts. Their new business team was leaving on time. So if you look at that from March 22nd to May 19th, they made a significant impact in their organization in just a span of 2 months. So just that new business team alone, they're saving 900 hours of processing time per year. They're able to focus on how they're focusing on improving accuracy, not focusing on getting things done fast. They're not skipping steps. And they actually had complete relief over their line of business application of not slowing down. So if you look at it, they leverage reporting dashboards, which I know a number of customers on the phone do today. If you look at that bar chart on the top left, the red line is the line of contracts processed by a human, and then the green is the contracts processed and settled by a bot. So you can see in that span when they rolled it out at the beginning of May, you saw a dramatic increase in where they were from a bot processing, and then it was a quick decline on the user standpoint. If you go to the next slide, Greg, this is specifically just within the month of August, so just a couple months ago. The green line is the daily breakdown of how many contracts were settled by their various bots. And then the red line is where a human had to get involved. And it was probably tough to see, but there's several days where the red line is 0. So they were able to settle all of their contracts by the bots automating what the humans were previously doing by implementing RPA. So again, I think the biggest win of this story is you can start small, you can think about where I can make immediate impact. This was tied into an on-base workflow process they already had, but there were still some manual components. But they made meaningful impact in a short time to their organization that both affected their customers by having quicker turnaround times, but also improved the lives of their employees.
Yeah, I don't think everyone.
I don't know how you're going to follow that.
I don't this may not improve everyone's lives, but maybe.
It will, but I mean, you're no bot, man.
Yeah, it's hard to quantify. Yeah. Anyway, one of the things I want to share, just talking with some of the development teams at Hyland and some of the things that had been shared with CommunityLIVE, is an increase in enhanced testing. As we mentioned earlier, a lot of updates in EP5. But each of those that we have there, we have to test those. There's something like 70 agile epics that Hyland went through, and each epic's about 6 months. Usually in agile terms, that's about 6 months to a year of development. So we're talking years of development effort went into this. But every time you're checking in code, you raise the risk of making something function different than you wanted it to, or just outright breaking some other component of the solution. And that's very, very impactful to Kiriworks, because we then are trying to develop our products and running into those issues. It's bad for our customers because they're having the same issues. It's just bad all around. So if we can avoid those and get those out early in testing, it's just going to make the product better and make everyone's lives better. I'm trying to stand up. I mean,
quality's key, man.
Yeah, quality of life.
Quality software is the way to live.
When we talk about testing, there's, oh my God, so many types of testing, and we can really break it down in 2 different categories. There's functional testing, which is like I'm making the software do something, and then there's non-functional testing, which is we're trying to test a solution or platform to make sure it meets some goal, some metric, some policy, some regulation. Functional testing, it can be automated. And what that means is, you know, like, hey, if I click on this keyword and then, you know, do this other action, this happens. You know, that you can script that to an extent. Some of it has to be manual. Non-functional testing is almost always automated. These are things where, like, I'm going to run a script that's going to just beat, you know, the heck out of the on-base application server and make sure that it stays running.
Real quick, I've got a really interesting connection to this. Not that I'm a software quality guy or anything,
Sure.
right? But one thing I didn't share in that case study,
oh my God, it's coming back.
yeah, is that they are starting to use Hyland RPA to run all of their test scenarios for their upgrade process. So they're building their user-based test scripts into Hyland RPA and having the bots run their test scripts instead of having users throughout the company to do it.
You're just teeing this up for me. So that's automated testing. And automated testing is the future. It's today. And Hyland is rapidly adopting automated testing. The idea is that if you can think through the inputs and outputs of what your software should do, you should be able to devise unit tests and integration tests and things that will allow it to make sure every time you check in your code to make sure that those things still work. So the benefits of automated testing, and you know, and Hyland is using this in all business units, in all of their development teams. The benefits are, I'm just going to read these. It's fast, right? I check in my code. I want my developers checking my code in daily. When they check it in, we're going to perform 25 tasks, and we're going to do it automatically every time. It's repeatable. We know that if we update our tests, that the code is still going to get checked. We're going to be able to compare running results against each other. It's reliable, it's accurate, it saves a lot of time and money both for Hyland, but also for Kiriworks and also for you. It reduces human error where maybe the test wasn't performed correctly or a test was skipped. And then I keep harping on this, but this is in terms of, you know, a CI/CD pipeline. When you're doing continuous integration and continuous development, you're checking in code a lot, and you're merging that code into your main build frequently. And every time you do that, you want to make sure that you are doing what you intended to do and not breaking things you didn't intend to break. And that automation is key to reducing the level of defects that we're seeing, and key to reducing what, you know, hopefully you run into when you're deploying Hyland solutions. This is wow. We Hyland went in on this, and it was great. They were talking a lot about managed services. They're seeing a huge interest in it. Hyland, I've had a conversation with Hyland's managed services team, and it ended up turning into them asking our advice, because Kiriworks has been doing this for over 6 years now. And that customer is still a customer, and they're still utilizing managed services. What does that mean? It's something that, you know, I want to just take a step back, and, you know, when you have an on-base solution, you have this, you know, in your environment, it takes a certain person to be able to reliably administer that solution. So, like, to be able to get that solution up and running and to manage it over the course of, say, a year, you kind of need to know things like networking and Windows Server, you know, your Windows desktop, just software troubleshooting in general. You have to have some familiarity with, you know, some of the database platforms, particularly the one you're using. You need to know in on-base, you know, where do you go to keep it, you know, well fed and well maintained, how to keep services running, how to migrate changes and, you know, between environments, and how to make sure backups are being done. And it's just a lot of training involved too, right? And in order to get to that point, you either have to be using it for many years and just figure it out, take some courses from Hyland, or both. It's just a lot of time and money. And finally, even if you have all those things, you know, just having the time to do some of those tasks is really a challenge. Hyland, you know, was saying, like, we're seeing a lot of feedback and a lot of requests for help on this. We've been seeing this for years, and we've been seeing an uptick on it as well. And, you know, the cost of maintaining it is really, you know, the IT is any impact to your operations in IT is affecting end users, and we need to get this resolved ASAP. What we're hearing from our admins is, like, yeah, I manage on-base, but I also manage a few different platforms or software solutions. It's hard to stay up to date on stuff. It would be nice if I could just let that run on autopilot and not have to worry about it. Finally, you know, if in terms of the Great Recession, as some are coining it, I mean, people are changing jobs. So you may have someone that's well-trained and well-certified and knows the solution, backwards and forwards, and they may go on for another opportunity. Ambience is still critical to your your business functions. Who is managing that system?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point, Greg, when it comes to managed services that I don't necessarily know I've really thought about recently, but you're right as it relates to this whole great resignation, is that it's really hard to find people with on-base talent or people that have because on-base has been around since 1991, making sure that they have on-base experience that's relevant and of value, and that they have the correct certifications that are on the modern stack of on-base is really hard to find. I mean, we're the fifth largest partner in the Hyland ecosystem, and we have a hard time finding on-base people. So even you as an organization, when you lose that one on-base person, it's really tough. And that's a great reason for investing in managed services. And to that end, you said we've seen a big uptick. At this point, almost 25% of our customers are on one of our enhanced support offerings because they want their users focused on how to drive more value out of on-base versus the day-to-day care and feeding, maintenance, and keeping on-base up and running in a secure manner. They want them to be able to build out a new workflow, build out a new application.
So I mean, what is it at a high level? We have a team of on-base professionals that act as part of your team. Our goal is to resolve your end user tickets quickly and professionally, and allow your team to focus on anything else other than those repeatable tasks. We do daily checks on servers and services, make sure that things are up and running and performing the way they need to. And then we have tasks and reporting that we do daily, weekly, monthly, annually, to just make sure that things are running smooth and to give you some insights into the system. It's something we've been doing for years. We're seeing more and more interest in it. It's a way to augment your current workforce, in a way that mitigates the risk of somebody, as we saw over the past year, getting COVID and being out for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Kiriworks already knows our system has access, and they're just going to keep the system running. Maybe it's delay some projects that we were working on, but on-base is well cared for, and Kiriworks is taking care of it. So that's our standard offering. We are able to extend that. We have some add-ons if you want to maybe utilize your own ticketing system instead of just emailing us, or you want us to make some more advanced configuration changes, or you have some custom development that you want us to to find a way to maybe add to the support, or hey, we just want to have our UAT refreshed once a year. Those are things we can add on. We try to customize it to what you need. Reach out to me, your account executive. We can talk more about it. But managed services is here to stay, and we're excited to be able to be at the forefront of providing that service.
And to wrap up here, and I don't know, Greg, we couldn't have timed this any better.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 takeaways in an hour. We've got these last few minutes here. This is perfect.
We did it.
It's been tough, right? This last couple of years of not being in front of all of you. You as our customers are what make us great. Bill Berger and I were down in Louisiana the past couple of days, and we were talking about where we learn the most about on-base is from our customers, and hearing how you guys are taking innovative, the concepts of on-base and building innovative solutions. And that a lot of the things we've learned from are the lessons you guys have given us as customers. So one, thank you for being our customers and our partners in this. I know these last year or so has been challenging, and we've had to have these virtual events, these webinars. We haven't held our typical customer event in the past. We've done as Empower. So with these virtual events, though, they can still be fun. Greg, if you want to move forward to the next slide there, you're able to do cool things, though, right? You had yoga, you had magic tricks, you had, our good friends at Great Lakes, who are going to be our neighbors soon here in Cleveland, teaching you guys about the great craft beer community here in Cleveland. But then also you get access to phenomenal presenters. You had Bronwyn Saglin-Benny talking to us about how to place our cameras, how to be better in this virtual world, how to present yourself, but also how to take time for yourself. how to disengage at times and be able to refresh and refocus. It was really cool to hear Mike Tirico, Michael Phelps talk about the lessons he's learned in order to be able to excel at a high level. And then to close the show out with Sheryl Crow and have a concert, it couldn't have been more fun. So for those of you that were there and experienced it, I hope you enjoyed these takeaways. For those of you that haven't, you can still go out right now and still register for CommunityLIVE. You can go out and access all of the on-demand sessions, every keynote, even these sessions. You can go watch Sheryl Crow on repeat if you want to. But every breakout session, every keynote, every even fun little yoga session, you can watch on online on demand through the end of the year. So I encourage you, if there's some of these topics that piqued your interest, go back out there, go out to CommunityLIVE, learn more, reach out, as Greg said, to your account executive, to us, to learn more. For those of you that got excited about that Hyland RPA case study, we can do a trial with you as well. We can do a workshop and help you guys build something out. Now, with that being said, let's all hope and pray that we will be together in person in Nashville at the Gaylord Opryland Resort, September 11th through the 15th. I know a lot of our teams here have started to go out and attend shows in person. When Bill and I were down in New Orleans this week, we saw people with lanyards on, walking around, and you started to feel a little bit of that sense of normal. So I'm hoping we can be there and see all of you back in person, learning more about what we can do with this great Hyland platform. So with that, I thank you, Greg, for your knowledge and expertise and sharing with our customers and partners. And for everyone else, enjoy the rest of the week, and please reach out to us with any questions. And let's finish the year strong.
Thank you, everyone.